just the fact that we have so many expressions for it, especially jazz musicians, they take this really seriously. Like to be able to play, you know, a stretch of music and not get faster or slower based on how hard or easy the music is. Would you count these numbers with me at this pulse? 1, 2, ready, go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Good. Would you snap on these? And this time, we won't count. We'll just do the counting in our head. 1, 2, ready, go. Eyes closed. Good, so if 100% would be like absolutely perfectly together, what score would you give us? 90? Ooh, you're a tough grader. What would the rest of you say? Come up with a score. 93. 93. Optimist.
3. Meeting district expectations.
Awesome. I'm going to make it harder. So that doesn't have a snap. Okay? Leave off the snap on 4. Eyes closed. 1, 2, on 5 and 8. 1, 2. Loser. Okay. Okay. Yeah, they're having their own private party over there. Need I say more? Actually, a true cello would not carry on like that. That's a low brass.
We didn't.
Yeah, you did, but you're girls. So, low brass girls. That's a different.
It also has to do with their heartbeat.
Yeah. So, can you tell me, 7th graders, how, you know, we've been trying this now, and I've actually given you a 16-beat pattern, and I keep changing the places where we snap, but you're actually getting better at it, and some of you have figured out some strategies. I noticed I haven't helped you at all to get better. You've just gotten better just by trying. So what are you doing to get better? Because you notice I'm not conducting like normal. Yeah?
I'm doing a mock snap or pretend snap on the beat.
So you're just doing something physical to fill in the extra beats. Okay, yeah.
Internalizing the beat.
How?
Like what she's saying, moving something, a tongue or a hand or a toe.
You're moving your tongue.
I do
She
think
taps
that.
her tongue against the back of her teeth. I know you're the best thing ever.
Wow. I might try that, tapping my tongue against my teeth.
I do.
Anybody else have a strategy that you want to share? Yeah.
Counting in my head.
How are you counting? Just like 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that? Okay, good. Anybody else have a strategy? What does that mean?
Thinking you have 1 and 2
And who taught you that word?
She's an intelligent
Teacher.
person.
That's actually a word I want to start using, subdividing. Could you explain how that works? Because we haven't actually talked about subdividing. Now we have a new word to talk about this. What would it be like? Instead of counting 1, 2.
Oh, like 1 and 2 and 3.
So you're just splitting the beat into smaller parts.
Or you can do 1 and 2.
Now, could somebody, that's a great idea. Could somebody explain why splitting the beat into smaller parts makes us play better? This is kind of hard to figure out, 7th graders. Do you have a theory about that? This is all in our effort to have a good time.
There's a shorter time span between what you're thinking about.
Okay, you don't have to wait as long. Okay, that's a good theory.
But similar to that, if you're playing 8th notes, that's more of a basis of what you're doing as opposed to quarter notes. Quarter notes, there's too much time in between.
Yeah.
So if you're
Wow, 7th graders, you are smart. Yeah.
Gives you more targets to aim for.
Okay, cool. Great, brilliant, really awesome. Would you take out that piece, that Greek piece again, and would you look at measure 15? Measure 15. Let's do the pickup. 1 and 2 and 3 and go. So, who had the melody in that section? Good sight reading, by the way. First violins, anybody else? And second violins actually have the melody here. And violas. Can I hear you guys with the melody at 15 so we can all hear that? And I'd like you to tell me, is this section of the melody the same as what we learned yesterday, or is it different? Ready, and go. So that little section, same or different than the first section we learned? Different. So yesterday, actually, you told me that the cellos had the melody first, then the first violins. And by the way, what they did, do you remember? Was it the same or different?
Do you mean of each other, or do you mean of this other melody?
They were the same.
I'm not talking about this one. Yesterday, they were the same, right? So if we called the cello melody A, what would we call the violin melody? A as well. What would we call this one? B, okay? And we're not done with this section yet, right? We can see the repeat sign coming up. So at 20, who has the melody there? Can we hear that? Okay? And the rest of you that don't have it, you're gonna have to tell me, is it an A, is it a B, or is it something new? Ready, and go. Let's take a vote. Who says it's A? Who says it's B? Who says it's something new? By the way, what would we call something new?
I think it's called A prime, because it's very similar to A.
I think you're a very advanced 7th grader. Yeah. So if it's enough like A, we'll just call it A, right? Even though it might have some small differences. It's basically, you know, it's close enough to be a twin. It's not like a distant cousin. Good, really, really great. So this is our structure of our little song. And I promised you on Monday that I would tell you the story of the Arethusa. And I'm actually going to share it with you right now. The Arethusa, remember the three things that it was. It was a Greek water sprite, it was a ship, and a song. Well, I'm going to do the ship today. The Arethusa was a ship, an English ship, and we're talking about the year 1778. What's happening in 1778? Yeah, revolution, although they don't call it that in England, right? They call it bad things, right? What do you think they call it?
Rebellion?
Rebellion, yeah, rebellion, right? Those bad colonists. So the Arethusa is this British ship. I have to tell you about one other ship though that, of course, there's going to be a battle. So you need to know the name of the other ship. The other ship is a French ship called, and if anybody knows how to translate this, 7th graders, that would be great. La Belle Poule. Anybody translate that? La Belle Poule.
Pretty chicken?
The pretty chicken, yeah, the cute little chicken, which actually this is a word for a young lady, so it's not really chicken. You know how we sometimes say, wow, she's a chick, yeah. This is the pretty chick. That's the French ship. Now, this ship is really important for the next 30 seconds. This ship is actually going from France to the colonies, what we now call America, United States, yeah. And it has a very important person on board. His name is Benjamin Franklin. And why was he in France? Anybody know? Yeah, he was ambassador, right? So he's pretty important. So La Belle Poule is taking him from Paris back to Boston, and they get stopped by a British ship. And the British ship says, we know that you have an American rebel on board, and we demand, the captain of this British ship says, we command you to let us come on board and see what you have. And the captain of the French ship of the Belle Poule, Charles de Benard de Marigny, says, quote, he says, I am the Belle Poule, frigate of the King of France. I sail from sea and I sail to sea. Vessels of the King, my master, never allow inspections. What do you think happened?
They got fight.
They didn't. Actually, the French ship was like, okay. Or the English ship was like, okay. The English ship just backed out. This is a different ship, right? This is not the Arethusa. So, and then La Belle Poule just keeps going, and they get in a storm, and they have to turn back after 36 days at sea. Benjamin Franklin has to go back to Paris, and he has to get on another boat and take him to America. So you think the story's over? No, La Belle Poule then goes out. Finally, war is broken out with the colonies in Britain, and whose side was France on? Right now, nobody. Right? They hadn't taken sides yet. They're about to take sides with us. So La Belle Poule is going out on a reconnaissance mission, right? And who does it run into? The Arethusa. So it's Belle Poule versus Arethusa. There's a huge battle. I even know the date of it. June 18th, 1778. There's a big battle. You want to take bets on who won? The British, Arethusa, or the French, La Belle Poule?
The Arabs.
Both sides had to retreat. The Arethusa lost its mast, right? And lots of people. And the Arethusa just had to like get back to England, right? The Belle Poule, actually, its captain was killed, and so several of its soldiers. But the Belle Poule and the other frigates in the French fleet were able to get back to France safely. And in Paris, there was celebration in the streets, right? This is such a big deal that the Belle Poule had, in their first naval conflict with the British, that the Belle Poule had won. In fact, this is really interesting. Not only was it in the papers and everybody's talking about like, La Belle Poule, right? Vive la France! Women in France at this time, they liked fancy hairstyles, and they actually, hairdressers developed a style called La Belle Poule. It was made of fake hair, right? Because women didn't have this much hair, but it stood like maybe this tall above their head, and it had, there was like cardboard in it and hair that was teased up, and this replica of the Belle Poule on their head, woven into the hair. There's actually pictures of it. In fact, you'll all get one of these. I have a big one that I'll show you, but here's a little picture of La Belle Poule hairstyle. That one. So I'll give you each one to see before you leave here today.
Oh my God.
That's what a big deal it was, right? So Vive la France, right? And Arethusa goes home in shame. I'll let you guys see this in a little bit. Okay, that's the story of the Arethusa. Sad day for the Arethusa. Can you do this rhythm right now? Grab your instrument, string instruments. Everybody else pretend you're a string instrument. Can you just find a place to knock on the instrument with your knuckle? Just find a place that sounds good. It can either be on the bottom. Those of you that don't have a string instrument, you can knock on your chair or on your bell or whatever. Okay. Let's try this rhythm. A and C. You're gonna be everybody who's wearing blue or black. B and D, everybody else. 2, ready, and go. Eyes closed. Awesome. Really, you're getting this much better at that. I can tell you're really listening. There's a section of the piece that does that. Do you know where this is? At 25. Would you play your own part at 25? And figure out a way to make sure that we can hear that your instrument is different, right? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the first time Colenio, and then the second time you can. Actually, you guys do Colenio, everyone else can knock, okay? And only play second time if it says second time. Pick up to 25. 2, ready, and go. Sadly, there's only one viola playing Colenio, and the viola part is really cool at this spot. The viola part may be the most prominent thing. Now, when we hear all the instruments, basses, cellos, and violins and violas knocking, we hear a bunch of different pitches, right? We didn't quite hear the exact same effect here. Why do you suppose this is in the piece? What could this music mean? What do you think? I'm just asking you now to imagine a room full of strings, 7th graders.
Maybe simulating the sound of drums.
Okay, there's one idea. I want at least 3 different ideas.
Artillery.
Artillery, okay, anybody else? Drums, artillery.
Maybe the mast falling down.
Okay, cool. An idea I've never heard.
The celebration in the streets.
Celebration in the streets, okay.
Yeah.
Swords clanking. Okay, cool. Anybody else? Now, I will tell you, you could search the internet for days till your eyes water. You're not going to find any place that explains what this music is. Maybe you could call Deborah Baker Monday and say, what does this music mean? But we have to come up with some meaning for it, right? Why all of a sudden we're doing, and what that music could possibly mean. It's really cool sounding, yeah.
The composer died 40 years before the Arethusa sale.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah. So too bad we're out of time. Maybe have a nice weekend. Have a nice weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Okay. And it's Monday. Would you guys take out the piece that you have that's based on a naval battle? You find that piece, okay? And I have a present for you. Remember I told you it's a Greek nymph, ship, and
Song.
what you're playing is actually not a song, right? Because songs have words. What you're playing is a piece. And you know my pet peeve about people calling their band pieces or orchestra pieces songs. This is the actual song. I made a copy for each of you. Would you take one and pass it down? Aren't you excited? You can keep this. And it's kind of hard to sing. So just to save time, I'm going to sing it for you. I'm going to start right now, even though you don't have a copy in front. And I'd like you to tell me what's cool about this song. Come all ye jolly sailors bold, whose hearts are cast in honor's mold, while English glory I unfold. Huzzah for the Arethusa, she is a frigate stout and brave, as ever stemmed the shining wave. Her men are staunch to their favorite launch, and when the foe shall meet our fire, soon ere then strike we'll all expire on board the Arethusa. Who's singing?
The Englishman?
Are you sure it's English people singing?
No. Yes.
Well, let's see. Here's the second verse. 'Twas with the spring fleet she went out, the English channel to cruise about, when 4 French sails in show so stout bore down on the Arethusa. The famed Bethel straight ahead did lie, the Arethusa seemed to fly. Not a sheet or a tack or a brave brace did she slack, though the Frenchmen laughed and thought it stuff, but they knew not the handful full of men how tough on board the Arethusa. Sorry, I should have practiced that. Who's singing? It's the same people singing the first 2 verses. Who would you say is singing? I heard someone say the English. I heard someone say the French. Let's take a vote. Who says French? It's French people singing. Who says English? Somebody else? Do you have another theory about who might be singing? Go ahead. Theories are good. The storyteller. So it could be a storyteller. Whose point of view is it from? British point of view? Anybody want to take issue with that?
You have to look at the last verse.
Okay, well let's look at another verse. On deck 500 men did dance, the stoutest they could find in France. We with 200 did advance on board the Arethusa. Okay, there's a clue. Whose point of view is it from? The winners. Is it English or French point of view?
French.
Are you sure?
We did advance on the
French at 500.
Yeah.
French at
We with 200 did
They were
advance.
on
They
board.
advanced the Arethusa
They were on board the Arethusa.
with 200.
You have to read carefully.
We with 200 did advance on the
We with 200, they with 500. And who had 500?
It says our captain hailed the Frenchman. Ho! The Frenchman then cried out.
Yeah, you can't look at one sentence. You have to look at all the clues put together. Yeah, go ahead.
In the last
Making fun of the French people.
the last part of the first verse, will all expire on board the Arethusa.
They are.
So it looks like it's all from an English point of view.
Yeah, because they're making fun of the French people. If you look down, it says the Frenchman. That's can be.
Yeah. Our captain hailed the Frenchman. Ho! The Frenchman then cried out, Allo, bear down to your seat or admiral's lee. No, no, says the Frenchman, that can't be. Then I must lug you along with me, says the saucy Arethusa. And the last one. The fight was off the Frenchman's land. That's true. We drove them back upon their strand, for we fought till not a stick would stand on board the Arethusa. And now we've driven the foe ashore, never to fight the Britons more. Let each fill a glass to his favorite lass, a health to the captain and officers true, and all that belong to the jovial crew on board the Arethusa.
It's a historic.
True. Whose point of view? We still don't seem to agree on that. Are you all convinced British?
No.
I am.
I think it's British, and I think that I think it's switching. They're lying in the song to make it seem like they fought a good fight and didn't lose.
Yeah, you've uncovered a secret of the song. It is definitely a British song. It's from the point of view of the British. And if you go through line by line, you'll see that it's from the point of view of the British. But it's different than the story I told you in some major details. Like what?
Like they won.
Yeah, right. Like we drove them back to France and they're never gonna attack us again and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's pretty much not what happened historically. So what's up with this?
What you gotta do?
That's what you gotta do.
You gotta lie.
Yeah, so there's you may know this, 7th graders, but there's a famous saying that, it's like the victors who get to write history, right? So this has been true all through history, that the people who win are the ones who get to tell the story from their point of view, because that's the one that we tend to believe. This song has a long history. These words were written right after the battle, and then this guy, William Shield, put them with an old melody. That's why some of you noticed that the melody predates the actual battle, because the melody had been around for a long time. The melody's known by several different names. Some people call it, it's a fiddle tune called Miss McDermott. Some of you may find it in your fiddling books, violins. But he combined them in an opera. And when was the opera? What year was the opera?
1796.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're looking for details. 1796, The Lock and Key. This is an opera where this song appeared. And he, like I said, he combined this old words about the Arethusa with this old melody and then threw it into his opera. This was at another time when the British really hated the French, around the 1790s. That lasted a long time, actually. We actually have a word for this when somebody we say they put a different spin, right, on history. And this idea of spin, this is my marker here, the idea of spin is something we're going to keep coming back to. Okay. Great. I have a friend in St. Charles, Illinois. By the way, that was a really good rehearsal yesterday. I'm glad to see you again. Still wearing the same clothes. I have a friend in St. Charles, and when you go in her bathroom, what you'll see is that there's a shower curtain, and it has foxes on it. And there's a rug in front of the toilet, and it's a fox. And her soap dish is a little fox laying on its back, holding a little cup with a little fox on it. The wallpaper, guess. Foxes. There's a little bookshelf, all little fox books, children's books and other books about foxes. There's even a door stopper. I love this door stopper. It's like pewter or whatever, and it's just this stout-looking little fox there. Have you ever seen a bathroom with something, maybe not foxes, but something else like that in there? What have you seen?
Fish. Yeah.
Fish. What else?
Outhouses.
Bears.
Outhouses. That's it. Bears. What else?
Lighthouses.
Lighthouses. Yeah. So there's actually a name for that when we take an idea like a fox. And by the way, I should tell you, you probably knew this already, but all those foxes didn't look exactly the same. They were all foxes, but they were each a little bit different. Like, I'm guessing fish, if you have fish, it's not the same fish everywhere, right? That would just be weird. Interior designers actually have a name for that. Some of you might know this word. They say that the thing that is in all these places is a little motif. Right? That's the word that designers use. And guess what? We use the same word in music. And the way we define it in music is a little tiny piece of music. It could be like 3 notes, just 3 or 4 notes, tiny, tiny little piece that's used throughout the piece. Now here's my question, whether the motif is in my friend's bathroom and it's foxes or fish or ducks or penguins or whatever, or a little tiny phrase of 2 or 3 notes in a piece of music, what's the point? They both serve the same purpose. What is that purpose? Yeah.
Unifies.
How does that work?
With something you recognize from earlier in the piece, maybe.
Okay. Anything else want to add to that?
Tie it together.
Tie it together. Keeps you interested. Okay.
lots of variation.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I like, that makes, were you thinking in terms of music or bathrooms?
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that neat? Like if you really like Mickey Mouse, of course Mickey Mouse pretty much always looks the same, but he's not always in the same position, right? But whatever your motif is, half the fun is like seeing it different, right? It's, you recognize that it's always fish, but they each look a little different. Yeah.
It could be a symbol of something.
Aha, so it could have some meaning, right? Like meaning for your family or meaning for you
Or
personally.
like in the bathroom because it's a place with water, that's what the fish are there.
Yeah.
Or the outhouse is because of, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I've never seen outhouses, but that's a good one. I'm curious about this. Yeah, really cool. So there's a really famous motif in history. It's 4 notes that were used to create a whole 6-minute piece of orchestral music. There's no words. Do you know what I'm thinking of? Yeah, you probably learned this in 3rd or 4th grade, right? And so what we're going to do right now is I have a tally sheet for you. It's called The Greatest Motif in History. And I just want you, every time you hear it, just do a tally, right? So after you've done, except we're not going to do it because I'm not going to take the time, but it would be a lot of fun, right? And just listening to Beethoven, it's just fun, right? It's like just hear, ba 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 ba, there's 1, ba 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 ba, there's 2. Now that you've heard it, how many ways does Beethoven vary the motif? Can you think of one, just retracing that piece in your head? Say it again? Yeah, so ba 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 ba, already it's varied. Ba 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 ba, a new starting note, right? It's the same interval, that's the 3rd. Another way that it might get varied? Yeah, ba 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 bum. Yeah, exactly right. You would know that as a low instrument player. Ta 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 ta. Any others?
Instrumentation.
Instrumentation. Good. I'm glad someone said that. Changing the instrumentation. Anybody else? Okay. Here's the question we're going to take up tomorrow. There's a motif in the Arethusa. I want to see if you can figure out what the motif is. Okay. And it's tomorrow. Can you find the motif in Arethusa? And we can debate this, right? Because it's no fun if we just automatically have consensus automatically. Very little things in music, very few things we have consensus immediately. Yeah?
And I have it pickups to 11. Ba-da-dum, bum, bum.
So how many notes altogether? Count them.
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ba-ba-bum, bum, bum. Good. So a motif, I will give you a hint. It's the smallest, it's like a prime number, right? It's the smallest thing you can reduce down. Would you like to reduce that motif less than 5 notes? Or do you think 5 is the minimum? You think 3? Da da da. So this is good. This is good. You started with an idea da 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 da, and you said actually it's even smaller. Ta ta ta. Can you find a measure where you see that? If you have a place where you find that, would you just play it? Go ahead. Just play it all one at a time. Is that your first thing you do?
No.
Yeah, so toss out a measure where you find that in your part. 11 for seconds and violas. Good.
Pickups to 21, going the other way.
Pick up to 21. Okay.
First violin.
Do you want to play that? Ready and go. Yep. Another one?
Measure 3.
Measure 3.
Oh, okay.
Let's hear it. First violin's measure 3. Everyone listen to the first set, measure 3. Ready and go. Yeah, that's the very first notes we hear of the whole piece, right? Ta ta ta. And I'll give you a hint. That's a clue, just like in Beethoven that we heard on Tuesday. Oftentimes the motif comes right at the beginning and says, "This is what our piece is going to be about." Da 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 da. Here it's bum bum bum. Do you find it all the way through? Can you find it in the last 20 measures of the piece? That motif. Where?
61.
Okay, so let's hear. Can we start at 61, please? Can we play 61 to the end? We've never actually played this. It's going to be quite exciting. 61 to the end. 2, ready, and go. Notes, right? You got 1 beat ahead. 2, we're starting right on 61. And remember that if you have a pickup to 61, you can play it, but cellos don't. 2, ready, and go. 61, 2, this time, just play the motif at the proper time. Just the motif. No long notes, okay? 2, ready, and go. That is so fun. Yeah, don't keep going, because that, I guess, yeah, you have a couple motifs in a row, right? Ba 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 ba. That's 2 in a row. One more time, just motif. Ready, and go. Good, excellent, really great. So now that you're aware of that little motif there, we'll back off a little bit on the long notes so that the motif can come through. Now, can I just ask you, that motif actually came out of the head of who? Where did that motif originate? Like, who first had the idea of ta-ta-ta? Turlo O'Carolan. Okay, so every time we play pa-pa-pa, it belongs to Turlo O'Carolan. Would you agree? Like he invented that. No. Okay, I love controversy. Let's hear it. I'm seeing all these skeptics over here. Where did it come
No,
from?
because it's by the arranger, because the arranger decided who's gonna play it where and when.
It does appear in the original too.
I mean, it's in the original, but in this arrangement, it was the arranger who decided that one section's gonna play first and the answer by another.
Oh, seventh graders, I love you.
I was gonna say it came back from when we started to actually have rhythm other than chant.
Okay, so you're like 2,000 years of music history right there, folks. Yeah, but I think you guys are you hit upon something really important. It's like ta ta ta, right? That comes from Turlo O'Carolan, but to take it apart and make it a motif in the rest